I don't even think it's on, but that's okay. I'm loud, so. Hi, my name is Steve Turner. It's on now, yeah. My name is Steve Turner. I'm the one of the son-in-laws of Margaret Brierton, the lovely lady in the urn right now behind me. And I'll be conducting a little bit of a smudge here first, and just to explain that out. It's an Indigenous tradition that we undertake, and I appreciate the fact that my mother-in-law very much was excited to learn about a lot of Indigenous traditions when I finally got to meet her beautiful daughter, and I took her from her home, brought her back to my village, forced her to marry me. But apart from that, Mom liked to spend a lot of time up north, and that I was very grateful for. My parents always told me, like, when I married, to marry somebody who probably would like the cabin. That was such an important thing to them, and that's where I lucked out. Not only did I marry someone who really liked our place up north, but her entire family also liked the place up north because Mom spent a lot of time there. Her sister Lisa spent a lot of time there. We got to have up a lot of the family, and that I truly appreciated. So she did appreciate a lot of Indigenous traditions, one which we're going to do right now. I'm just going to smudge the area around Mom, and I was going to invite anyone that wished to participate in a smudge, and I'd just like to let you know this is not a religious experience, and it's more of a spiritual experience. So if you would like to participate in a smudge, you can come up here and form a little circle, and I'll smudge you as we're going through. I brought with me today the eagle feather, a little smudge bowl, and some sage. Sage is one of the 4 medicines. We have tobacco, sage, sweetgrass, and cedar. They're 4 of the sacred medicines. What they represent is when they're burnt, that helps offer your prayers to go up to the Creator through the smoke, so that it can essentially brings your prayers up to the Creator. So if you have good thoughts in your mind, please by all means think those good thoughts, and the Creator will access those as the smudge goes up. And sage I brought in particular because that's a woman's medicine, and obviously Mom was a woman. There's absolutely no denying that whatsoever. Right, so I just wanted to make sure I gave that very brief explanation, and as I said, if you wish to participate in a smudge, just make a little circle here, and I'll smudge you as after I finish smudging Mom in her area up here. Okay, thank you. Give me 1 second.
Typical, it goes in.
Yeah.
I don't know, Lisa, I don't think your light ever goes out.
That's for sure.
Oh, golly. Just kept those with me. And here I was trying to get the really dry stuff. That's all we need.
Imagine there's no heaven. See as if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger, or brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer,
How beautiful. What a beautiful way to start a celebration of life. It couldn't be more beautiful than having the smudging, Steve. Thank you so much for that. I think it's just extraordinary. And as we're coming in here, it's the Gay Pride parade and that, and there's balloons and color and costumes and music. She would have wanted that, wouldn't she? So we can say something is in the move there, and she could have imagined a celebration on her passing, if any of us can. And I came in here and I thought, oh my goodness gracious, this is a party. And then some people say, well, isn't that kind of like not the thing to do when you pass? And I think that's exactly the thing to do when you pass. And that's exactly what she would have wanted, as I've understood. Now, the only religious thing you're going to hear today, and I'm not a religious person, I'm a spiritual person, but I am ordained as a reverend. So my name is Reverend Sherry, the most irreverent reverend you'll probably ever meet. And you know it. So I'm going to read a poem here. And forgive me if I have a rotten Irish accent, because it sometimes comes out. I'm adopted and I have a lot of history in my blood. And where does it come from? Where does anything come from? So it's called The Lake Isle of Innisfree by William Butler Yeats. Oh, I'm on the names today. I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin built there, of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honey bee, and live alone in the bee-loud glade. And I shall have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the vales of the morning to where the crickets sings. There midnight's all a glimmer, and noon a purple glow, and evening full of the linnet's wings. I will arise and go now, for always night and day I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore, while I stand on the roadway or on the pavement's gray. I hear it in the deep heart's core. I did a little research on the meaning of this poem, and I hope I got it right. And I forgot my glasses, but anyway. Maggie lived a full life in this world, not of this world. This poem talks of nature, being born, living its full life, then going back to where it came from, be it an evergreen of all seasons, a tulip in the spring, the food we grow. All these follow their own course of life, full of hope and potential, no matter the conditions, continuing each its personal journey. Nature at its best. Today, we are here to celebrate a life full of love, compassion, hard work, romance, family, kindness towards all. Margaret, Brierton, Warrens, oh darn, I got all the words right there, miss. Oh well. Maggie, who was born March 25th, 1934 in Great Yarmouth, England, through her parents, now transcended to meet her beloved husband Robert and sister Jan. I can imagine a smile on her face, knowing the love that surrounds us today. One could ask, where do we go when we pass? One of the greatest challenges that all of us meet is the challenge of change. And surely one of the greatest challenges, and indeed the most mysterious of all, is this one that we call death. What happens when the individual goes through this experience called death? I believe it is simply the separation of the soul from a particular body. The body is merely the clothing the soul has worn for a time. And in this process that we call death, the clothing is discarded and the soul goes on to its next experience in divine unfoldment. And she was a fashion girl, so she was letting go of a lot of design and a lot of colors and a lot of expression. And that expression is going to continue through all of you. Now, we're going to do the eulogy, and I'm going to start with a chuckle. I found out that Maggie and I have something in common. It's my understanding that the girls took her to see a movie called Love Again. Sam Hewen, who played Jamie in Outlander, being one of her favorites, one of mine, was in this movie. And who doesn't love Claire? 3 older women were also there. And she had her oxygen mask on, and I don't know if she took it off to say this, but Maggie says at the end of the movie, "Oh, it was lovely, but I would have loved seeing his lovely bum." I think we all have a little mischief in us, don't we? I'm not going to see the movie then, it's not worth it. So I would like to invite Bonnie and Lisa, and they're going to come up and do a life history on Maggie.
Don't grade me on my reading ability today.
She only teaches kindergarten. They're small words usually.
Margaret Brierton, A Life History. Our mother, Margaret Velma Warrens, not her favorite middle name, came into this world on March 25th, 1934. She was born on the 3rd floor of her grandmother's rooming house near the beaches of Great Yarmouth in England. She spent her childhood in Norwich with her sister Jan and her mother Frances and father Leonard. To say our mother did not have a warm and fuzzy childhood would be putting it mildly. Children were to be seen and not heard. Hugs were non-existent, and love was something sorely missing. As a young girl, she remembered the Blitz of Norwich, visiting what she called the dead houses after the bombs dropped, and her Mickey Mouse gas mask, which she was very sad to give up when she got too old. She even remembered having the train she was on being strafed by German airplanes as she traveled to a hospital in the countryside. Strangely, she wasn't upset about the bullets. What she was upset about was the fact that her favorite coat was ruined by having to hide under the seats. Mom was a fashionista, even at a young age.
Mom attended Catholic school, even though she was Anglican, with the Catholic nuns she called the Sisters of No Mercy. Mom's school days were not without strife. Strangely enough, our mother was a bit of a troublemaker. Whether it was telling the teacher that her name was not Margaret, but she would like to be called Quicksilver instead, sewing the nuns' nightgowns together on the clothing line, or borrowing another girl's shoes because she liked them, Mom had a bit of a habit of getting into trouble.
It was at the ripe old age of 13 when my mother first saw our father, Robert Brierton. The way she tells it, Dad's brother Jimmy was interested in her friend, so she suggested to Jimmy that she would get him a date with her friend Veronica if he got her one with Bobby, who was 20 at the time. They went to a pub where Mom ordered a soda and hoped he wouldn't notice how young she was. You would think the rest would be history, but you'd be wrong. Because my poor father did not realize she was only 13, and a couple of weeks later, when my mother was walking to Catholic school with her braids and her pinafore dress and her lunchbox and her knee socks, he happened to be working on a bricklaying job. Needless to say, his workmates ribbed him about robbing the cradle, and he very quickly let my mother know that she was far too young to continue seeing him. Now, luckily for us kids, that was not the end of the story, because at the age of 15, when our mother was working in a licensing office, a handsome young man came in to register his motorcycle. Bobby took one look at Margaret. He then sent her flowers and a note that told her, "If you go out with me again, I promise you will not regret it." And so, as they say, the rest is history.
They were married 10 days before Maggie's 18th birthday. I later found out this was for taxation purposes. So, at 21, Maggie had her first child at home with the longest labor and the largest of all of us, our brother Paul. It wasn't an easy birth, but my mother remembered fondly that Paul had been born in a cowl, which was an omen for safety upon the seas. And if you know my brother at all, you will know that that is strangely fitting. It was not easy being a young couple in England in the years after the war, and my father began to think and dream about making a big move. So one evening, he returned home with 3 brochures, one for Australia, one for South Africa, and one for Canada. He left the choice up to our mother. I will be forever grateful that she chose Canada. There's too many snakes and things in other places. They came to Canada in 1957 with a total of $198 in their pocket, all their winter wool clothes in July, and an entire crate of our mother's broken wedding china. They settled in Toronto and began to try and make a life, but it wasn't as easy as they thought it would be. The brochure had sold it as some sort of place where the opportunities rise up to meet you, but this was not the case. Dad got a job as a bricklayer, sort of under the table a little bit, and over the next number of years, Mom and Dad worked many jobs, often 2 and 3 at a time, to make ends meet. They moved a lot, and it was not an easy life, and Mom often found that she was sorely missing home. Eventually, though, they began to get some traction and were able to buy a house on Cherry Lawn Avenue. And there they welcomed a sweet baby girl who they named Bonita Jane. Mom recollects that this was the most perfect of births, with very little pain. That came later. And a quick recovery.
On one of her first jobs in Canada, one of her first jobs in Canada was with Regal, where she met some long-lasting friends, including my godmother, Fran. Among her other jobs were house cleaning, secretary, bank teller, loans officer, account manager. Eventually, they made the move to Bradford. There, they had found a 3-acre lot that was originally a sheep field, but Mom could see it. She knew exactly where the house should go, where the gardens would be, so my dad set to work organizing to build them their dream house. They had the plans all ready. It was going to be absolutely perfect. Then Mom found out she was pregnant at 39 with Lisa.
They never told me that I messed up the house plans. But I do know that as soon as they could, my bedroom became a bathroom and Mom got a bigger closet.
Lisa's birth was more than a bit traumatic, and Mom often talked about the fact that it was a miracle that she survived. I remember it as a very chaotic night in which they told us that she wasn't going to last 3 days, and I said to Mom, "Don't believe them. I know she's going to live." I've been asking for this for 12 years, so. Mom was so thrilled to have another child and spent her time divided between her precious new babe and getting the house completed. Both Mom and Dad went into work mode to get the home finished as fast as possible. It was a family effort, and we all helped out together.
During this time, Mom worked at the CIBC in Bradford. Eventually, though, an opportunity came for them to begin their own business, Class and Pumps, and they built this business along with our brother Paul. Dad handled the sales, and Mom was in charge of the accounts. And this would be where they finally got to feel some of the success they'd been chasing. Together, they built a life that most would envy. They created a home full of love and traditions. Mom took great pride in her home, and it always looked ready for show, but it was still comfortable as a family place. A few weeks ago, we took Mom to visit the house in Bradford. She peered at it and broke down, saying that this had been the home of her heart. She knew every nook and cranny, and she could see my father everywhere. To her, it was a place of love. As a grandmother, you could not find a more loving and joyful person. She loved her grandchildren and was always sharing stories of them with whoever would listen.
Paul married his high school sweetheart, Tracy, and welcomed the first grandchildren, Joshua and Kristen. Bonnie married her sweet husband, Steve, and welcomed Shane and Cole into the family. Lisa married the love of her life, Andrew, and welcomed Jacob and Ryan. All of these babies made our mother smile and brought her so much joy. The cherry on top came when she got to meet her two beautiful great-grandchildren, Natalie and Oscar, from Shane and Lindsay. She rejoiced and told everyone she was a Gigi.
Just when Mom and Dad were starting to think about finally retiring, she lost my father on November 11th, 1997. It was a hard time, and there were moments when we did not know we would make it. But Mom soldiered on, and after a stiff cup of tea, she moved forward, just like she always had. Over the past 26 years, Mom has lived in a number of different condos and in different places, and she has made many beautiful friends and been part of so many beautiful lives.
Her first diagnosis of lung cancer in 2016 shook our family to the core. But Mom, in true Mom fashion, bought some hats to cover her bald head and kept on moving forward. The chemo and radiation took its toll, and she never quite recovered. We did think we had it beat, only to find out 2 years ago that there was another spot. Mom refused chemo this time. She knew it would not do her any good. But she tried some radiation, and it seemed to work. Last December, though, we got the news that there were more spots on her lungs, and Mom made the decision that she had had enough. We knew what the MAID program had been something that was in the back of her mind. She had watched other people go down the difficult path of cancer, and she did not want to follow.
Mom found great comfort in the fact that she could have control over how she left this world. She got to organize things the way she wanted. She got to pick the time, and she did it in her own Maggie way. Mom spent the last few weeks visiting all of her favorite restaurants, sometimes 2 and 3 times, watching all of her favorite movies, which were all tearjerkers, telling stories, and visiting with friends and family.
There have been a lot of tears, but also a lot of laughter. When Mom passed, she was listening to her favorite songs, holding the hands of her children, and telling us she loved us. She was dreaming of our father and kept telling him that she would be there soon. One of the very last conversations we had She spoke with such amazement of what a wonderful life she had led. Now my turn? Okay. To stay with you? Yes. Okay. I might need you to take over. Okay, so both Lisa and I have written eulogies because our lives were very different. Our experiences were different. Partly because we're 12 years apart. My relationship with my mother was not a straight line like my sister's relationship with her. Our relationship was a very complex roadmap with twists, turns, hills, valleys, and occasional detours through major construction zones. During my childhood, my parents were working very hard to create a life for all of us. Sometimes that meant many jobs or many changes. Mom spent a large part of my childhood trying her best to keep me clean and out of bandages, with little or no success, I might add. She often became exasperated by my quest for all things forbidden, which inevitably landed me in the emergency room, where the nurses usually knew my name. The question, what will she do next, was frequently heard. But even though I challenged her most of the time, she rarely lost her cool. And when she did lose it, she often apologized later to me. Little did I know that the reason for these apologies was that she saw herself as a child when she saw me. When I was a child, I was constantly into mischief. And when my mom told her stories of childhood, things like sewing the nuns' nighties closed at the bottom, or locking some girls in a cloak closet, or even worse, wandering onto a beach full of mines to bury a dead cat, and always seemed to be in trouble for something, I understood that her mischief-making nature was mine as well. Veer left to avoid accident debris as we entered the teen years. At times, I felt like I was on a constant rerouting, like a possessed GPS was playing with me. Not only had we recently moved from the city to the small town, Bradford, but I soon became a big sister far earlier than I expected. We embarked on an adventure that was hectic and full of highs and lows as we raced to finish the dream house that was meant to be done before Lisa arrived. My mom's fury could be felt on the other side of town at times as I continued down the wrong roads or going completely in the wrong direction. Where Dad thought it best to remain silent and let me figure it out, Mom eventually tried to rewrite the map with some new roads paved smoothly. She did this by taking me on a mini vacation to the city. Needless to say, as a wayward teen, I was slightly suspicious of this maneuver. We spent the weekend shopping, eating, and going to see a nice little comedy called Clockwork Orange, which we quickly and most traumatically figured out was anything but a comedy in the first 5 minutes, and promptly left the theater unable to find words to describe what we had seen. On this detour from our regular hectic lives, we began to build bridges to each other, connecting to each other over shared life experiences and coming to understand each other a little better. Mom had a way of parenting that I didn't always understand, especially when I had made the decision at 16 to leave home. She didn't fight me on it. She knew that if she pushed, so would I. As a parent many years later, I learned to understand that lesson with my son, Cole. Mom's teen years were full of boundary pushing and self-discovery too, from her pretending to be much older than her 13 years in order to go out with a much older, handsome young man named Bob Brierton, who was 20 at the time, to sneak out to dances or eventually sneak out to meet up with Bob a distance from her parents' house because his motorcycle would have been too loud. So Mom's boundary pushing and self-discovery was akin to what I experienced too. At times I realized I was on the exact same road as my mom. Sometimes I was far behind her, and at other times I was in the lead. Eventually we met up and crossed a bridge into a new area altogether. My mom was always growing and trying to evolve as a mother, woman, and person. As I watched her face challenges from her past, it gave me the courage to face similar challenges. When we lost Dad, I watched in awe how strong and resilient she was. In the deepest pain she had ever been, she still spent all of her time thinking and caring about others. For a large part of our lives, we now have been growing together. As I became a mother, first to Shane and eventually Cole, our journeys became very intertwined. I grew to appreciate all the engineering she had done along our route, all the rewriting of plans, the failed attempts that all led to a strong road to each other. As we bonded over motherhood, we also began to really enjoy traveling together and made many trips down the same roads, sharing simple things like card games, skip-bo,
Which she cheated at.
together,
And continuing.
puzzles, books, movies, and long chats with lots of giggles. A new trip for my mom was her becoming a grandmother. That started with the first grandchild, Josh. This is also when I saw a very special side of my mom. She poured love into all her grandchildren and had such special relationships with them all. For me, this was a dream come true, as I unfortunately did not have that positive relationship with my own grandmothers. I think this relationship with Mom, that Mom had with my boys, really truly showed how special it was when each of my boys started visiting her on their own as soon as they could drive themselves. Sometimes I didn't even know that they were visiting her until she told me about their visits. I was overjoyed every time I heard about their visits, because above all, I wanted my boys to have a real connection to their grandma. Both my boys have so many memories with Mom, and I am so thankful for this. And even more special was being able to become a grandma myself with her. She became Gigi to Natalie and Oscar and helped me navigate in my new role as Kokum for these two very special beings. As a child, I knew my mother to be a staunch monarchist and Christian. My father had to become Christian in order for my mom to marry him. And every Christmas morning, we watched the Queen's Address. But over the years, Mom became disenchanted with both. Wanting to learn and support my Indigenous family, Mom took the time to learn about residential schools, treaties, and the roles that the monarch and church played in these. As she learned, she became passionate about speaking out against the powers that aided or created these negative systems. Mom decided that she could not in good faith support the monarchy or the church for their prospective roles in harming innocent children and their families. At the Bay Review, she met many people, some of like mind and others not so much. Mom took pride in trying to help others understand the injustices that had been done to Indigenous people. I am so proud of my mom's passion for my family's heritage. As a proud grandma she was able to enlighten some of the people in her building through kind education. In the past 10 years, I could call us twin highways. From when my mom's hip replacement surgery and I stayed with her for those first 2 weeks, although she did name me her drill sergeant when I made her do her exercises, we became even closer. Now, even though most of our roads have been re-asphalted and are very smooth, we still hit a pothole along the way. Even so, no matter how bumpy the road gets, we always find our way back to each other. Losing my mom does not seem entirely real right now. I find myself reaching for the phone because I miss our chats. I don't think I've realized the full gravity of my loss yet. And I'm sure there will be some bumpy roads and necessary new construction on the way. The words of my mother.
Want me to go?
No, get it. Just couldn't see through the water. Stop leaking. The words of my mother that will forever be heard are many. Life is what happens when you are making other plans. Kindness is always free. Family matters above all else. Have the courage to be your true self. Honesty is always the best policy. There is always time for one more game of Skip-Bo. And above all else, you are never too old to learn. I only hope that I can continue to grow and learn in the way my mother showed me. After all, I am my mother's child.
Good. My turn. Sorry. I will note that my font is smaller than yours.
You're okay.
I still can't read it, but. So, as you know, I'm a teacher. So I kind of put together a list of things I learned from my mother, or as I like to call them, momisms. Number 1, things will grow if you tend them. As I'm sure you know, my mother was an expert gardener. Whether it was the rock garden or tending to her trees, flowers, growing things have always been part of her life. But she also tended to her relationships. If you were Mom's friend, you knew it, and you knew she would be there for you. Over the years, I've watched my mother be there for her friends when they were sick or just in need of some comfort, and I have watched them be there for her through the ups and downs. I have to take a moment and mention a few that have helped Mom. Mary Wynn was the first friend my mom made at her seniors' home, and I'm pretty sure they kept each other sane through COVID. Amelia was a dancing queen, and she got our mother dancing again. And when Mom could no longer dance, she lived vicariously through Amelia. Lillian, who my mom bonded with over loss, but gave her gentle kindness and compassion. And Sandy Barrell, who, after 50 years of friendship, there aren't enough words to describe. Her daily phone calls and constant support saw Mom through lots of ups and downs, and I know she is missing her. Momism number 2. If you find a pair of shoes you like, buy them in every color. This goes for sweaters too. My mother's love of fashion and shopping is legendary. There was a time that I was pretty sure that the staff at the stores of Yorkdale knew when my mother was in the building. One thing my mother knew is that opportunities don't always stick around. So if you see something you want, go after it. Don't wait for tomorrow, because as Mom used to say, tomorrow is not promised. Momism number 3. There is never a wrong time to just turn up the music and dance. My mother loved to dance. My father, well, let's just say he did his best. Unfortunately, Dad had 2 left feet and couldn't find the beat if you gave him a map. But this did not stop them from dancing. My mother loved to dance to any kind of music. One of my favorite memories is attending concerts with her, especially a certain David Bowie concert, where she stood on the chair and yelled as loud as any teenager, "I love you, David!" We danced on our chairs all night long. In the past years, Mom has not been able to dance quite as actively, but she was still able to bust a move in the front seat of the car, listening to her favorites. And I think the lesson here is to just take a minute for joy. Number 4, if you take care of the pennies, the pounds will take care of themselves. My mother had a knack for taking care of money. She started her career at a handbag factory in the accounting department, and this was a surprise to me, actually went to night school to get her accounting diploma. I don't know how I did not know this about my mother until just before she passed, but she loved working in the banks and having all of the numbers add up beautifully. Mom loved accounting books and was quite stressed when it became time to computerize at the company. My favorite memory is her trying to work a mouse for the first time and picking up the mouse and pointing it at the screen because it said to point. Go, Mama. That being said, once she retired, she happily returned to her old ways of doing everything by hand because in her mind, technology was not trustworthy. Number 5, it is okay to go overboard for the people you love. At our house, Christmas was a big thing. Mom loved absolutely nothing more than going shopping for all of the presents, finishing her shopping, finding one more thing for one person, which then required buying everybody else one more thing. Every single year, she would let us children know that this was the last year you will be getting so many presents. And then she'd go overboard again. She took absolute joy in watching us unwrap our gifts. Number 6, a cup of tea and a warm hug will solve just about any problem there is. There have been times throughout my life where a cup of tea and a hug and some conversation with my mother have helped me sort things out. On the day my dad passed away, I remember we drank an entire box of red rose tea. It is no wonder that none of us could sleep that night. When Mom's cancer was discovered and she began her first round of treatment, it bothered her that she could not have the wine she usually had with dinner. But she was absolutely devastated when they told her she needed to cut back on the tea. The interesting thing about this is that I have 0 memories of my mother actually finishing a cup of tea. Most of her tea would be sipped and then let to go cold while she got busy doing something else. But over the years, we have solved all of life's problems over a cup of tea. Number 7, kindness is free. My mother had a way of making people feel welcome. If you were at our house and around the pool, you could be assured that my mother would make sure you were well fed, even including one of her famous liqueur sundaes. Our friends were treated like family, and if you were lucky enough to work for or with my mother, you too became family. Even at the Berryview, in the end, our hearts were warmed by the number of staff who stopped in to give my mother a hug and tell her how much they loved her. Our heartfelt thanks goes out to all of the wonderful people who work there. Number 8, holding a baby is good for the soul. My mother loved absolutely nothing more than holding a baby. It didn't matter whose baby it was. She loved holding her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren, but it was not out of the ordinary for my mother to approach someone with a baby, a stranger, and 10 seconds later, you would see her holding said child. Once, when we were on vacation in the Caribbean, my mother ended up holding some woman's baby at a straw market. When the gentleman who was running the stall asked my father how much, my dad replied with, "Put the baby down, Marg." But I could actually see my mother thinking it through. And I could have gotten a baby sister. Number 9, make a list, check it twice, rewrite the list, and then accept you're not going to get it all done. If you met my mother, you know she was one organized lady. Did not pass it on to us, just so you know. Mom had a way of making sure everything fell into place. She had lists, and then lists of those lists. She was the kind of person who had her Christmas cards done by September 1st or October 1st at the latest. Christmas presents were bought well in advance, and birthday cards were written at the start of the year to be mailed later. I have distinct memories as a child of getting a drink out of the fridge, placing it on the counter, leaving the room for 60 seconds, only to return and find that the drink had been poured out and the glass was already in the dishwasher. Likewise, my bed was often quickly made while I was visiting the bathroom on a Saturday morning. Not something a teenager likes, but Mom liked everything in its place. Number 10, life is what happens when you are making other plans. As much as my mother loved organization, she knew that some things don't go as planned. Sometimes you just don't get it right. Mom would be the first person to tell you that she wasn't perfect, that she didn't get it right every single time, and that she wished she could change some things. She would tell you that she did the best she could with what she knew at the time. Number 11, there is always a little bit of light, even in the dark. When we were going through Mom's things after she passed, we happened upon her journal from 1997. And I think that the entry written on November 11th is the epitome of my mother. She wrote, 1 a.m., Bob has died today. It is a dreadful, sad day. I love him so. Life will never be the same. I am alone. But she didn't leave it there. She continued, no, I am not alone. I have the love of my children, and we are all together. My mother was always able to find the silver lining or the tiniest sliver of something to be happy about or grateful for. When she had cancer, she would say how lucky she was to have the support of her children and friends. And hey, no hair meant no bad hair days. When COVID hit and she was back at the Berryview and locked down again, she would say, at least I'm safe. And at the end of her life, when many people would be filled with sadness or fear, she said, what a beautiful life I have lived, and how lucky am I to be surrounded by my 3 children, my 6 grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren. I think that this last lesson is the one that is the most important, and it is the one that has kept me going through the last 2 months. I will admit that there were days when I could not breathe, knowing that she was going to leave and that today was coming. But the thing that kept me going was knowing that I had been so very lucky to have had her. Let me just do this. Mom, if you are listening, here is what I hope for you. I hope you are somewhere in a garden surrounded by flowers, that there is some wonderful music playing, and that after you finish dancing with my dad, you can go play a round of skip-bo with your sister Jan. And I hope wherever you are dancing, and you know how much you are loved. There is a slideshow coming up, and I know Sherry's gonna introduce it a little bit. But I do want to apologize because it's a little long, because I couldn't pick the pictures. So I hope you'll forgive me. And you may need some Kleenex. Thank you.
Of a lass that is gone, say could that lass be I? Mary of soul, she sailed on a day over the sea to sky.
Keep the music going, darling.
Sing me a song of a lass that is gone. Say, could that lass be I? Mary of soul, she sailed on a day over the sea to sky. Billow and breeze, islands and seas, mountains of rain and sun. All that was good, all that was fair, all that was me is gone. Sing me a song of a lass that is gone. Say, could that lass be I? Mary of soul, she sailed on a day over the sea to sky.
She's going to be pretty happy about that one, isn't she? Oops. The glasses. One of the most comforting things that I have heard is what you guys told me when I was at your house. When Maggie was asked how she was feeling transitioning, and I've been with people, and I think it's the bravest and the most beautiful thing that people do. And if you don't know about it, it's something to be part of. But when you guys were asking her about her feeling when she was transitioning, and her response was, off into the wild blue yonder. She has gone to meet her Bob, and once again. And that's why I asked for the picture. I have a picture here, and it's like a very old picture. And one of the things you guys were saying is that they were bookends. And how do you keep a library together when you have loose books hanging around and just folding over? And I have this picture. You guys can't see it, but it was up at the front. And it looks like it's out at the seaside. And she's got the cutest little figure going on. And he's got his arms around her, and she's reaching up. And they're giving each other that kiss of love that we all want to have. And I really, really think I could see them right now in that pose. They're youthful forever, and they're the bookends, and they're kissing each other, and that love is eternal. And that didn't come to me until I seen that picture there, and I looked at it and I went, that's probably one of her favorite pictures. I would think so. We are here to release what has been, the very human experiences of your love for this woman, your shared stories, your histories, yet also open your hearts today that your relationships with her might be reborn through an understanding of spiritual grace. We release what was and make room for what shall be, as we testify within our minds that life does not end but merely transmutes, that today you say goodbye, and yet you also say hello. You say goodbye to the physical focus of a relationship with Maggie, and in letting go, you transmute the life experience into an angelic one. Everyone has their special relationship with this lovely woman. Your memories are the legacy in which she shall ever exist. Be with them now and send forth the loving energy that fills each of your hearts forever and a day. Mama, grandma, sister, friend, and much, much, much more. Each of you, her special person. Continue seeing her gifts of kindness and getting on with life as she did. Teaching your children what you have learned from this divine human being. Be, as in B-E-E, because there's something there with be loud. Be grateful. And I'm sure Maggie will fill you with joy from inside. What an amazing gift she has been. She might say, go, be free and joyful in heart, and reflect this to others. The world will be a much better place. So as Lisa was saying, she's put together a spectacular slideshow. And so after the slideshow, they are going to put on the Pachelbel's Canon. And during that song, you can get up and we're going to have a reception downstairs. Thank you, all of you, for being here today. And may you be peaceful and may you be happy and your hearts all filled with joy on behalf of Maggie. Thank you.
That's the picture.
For all those times you stood by me, for all the truth that you told me, for all the joy you brought to my life, for all the wrong that you made right, for every dream you made come true, for all the love I found in you, I'll be grateful, baby. You're the one who held me up, never let me fall. You're the one who saw me through it all. You were my strength when I was weak. You were my voice when I couldn't speak. You were my eyes when I couldn't see. You saw the best that was in me. Lifted me up when I couldn't reach. You gave me faith 'cause you believe. I'll never think because you love me. You gave me
They got in the trouble.
I could touch the sky. I lost my faith, you gave it back to me. You said my star was out of reach. You stood by me and I stood tall. I had your love, I had it all. I'm grateful for each day you gave me. Baby, I don't know that much, but I know this much is true. I was blessed because I was loved by you. You were my strength, my voice when I couldn't speak. You were my eyes when I couldn't see.
Took the supermarket flyers from the windowsill. Threw the day old tea from the cup. Packed up the photo album Matthew had made. Memories of a life that's been loved. Took the get well soon cards and stuffed animals. Poured the old ginger beer down the sink. Dad always told me, don't you cry when you're down. But my Mom, there's a tear every time. Oh, I'm in pieces, it's tearing me up, but I know a heart that's broke is a heart that's been loved. So I'll sing hallelujah. You were an angel in the shape of my mom. When I fell down, you'd be there holding me up. Spread your wings as you go. When God takes you back, you'll say hallelujah, you're home. Fluffed the pillows, made the bed, stacked the chairs up, folded your nightgowns neatly in a case. John said he'd drive, then put his hand on my cheek and wiped a tear from the side of my face. And I hope that I can see the world as you did, 'cause I know